where BMS7 has been postponed from 2020 to July 26 to 30 this year. It's taking place in 2 months' time. It will be chaired by Kenya, Ambassador Kimani, and a format of meeting is still to be determined, but it's likely that a hybrid format will be applied in which one delegate will be participating in person at the conference room, whereas others can participate via online. Civil society participation will be likely online only. This year, we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of Program Action. And we will have ODA, will have side event for this celebration. There's a link to BMS7 dedicated website. I'm going to share this presentation and the link to you after the seminar through EDA. Key issues BMS7. Well, in general, consider the implementation of POA, an international tracing instrument at the regional, national, regional, and global levels. New issue highlighted is diversion and illicit international transfers of small arms light weapons to unauthorized recipients. 3, as in the case of previous years, international cooperation and assistance will be one key component throughout this BMS session. 4, states will consider discussions and develop ideas how states can set or national target, as well as possibly at the regional level. As you are aware, POA, Program Action, does not have specific indicators or measurability. Therefore, it would be important and good opportunity to develop national and global target. Also, BMS7 will address weapons technology and design, and will discuss agenda of BMS8, which is scheduled for next year. BMS7 opportunities, just going through this quickly, further promote gender considerations. Also, states are expected to reconfirm their commitments in further to 2016 and 18 POA meetings. Again, national and regional targets will be an important discussion point. Reinforce importance including gender-based violence or other gender-specific questions. Foster collaboration with civil society and other gender-related provisions. Yes, this slide is prepared for a gender project, so a little bit more focus on gender. Mandates for national reporting. POA reference is very general, but in the international tracing instrument, states will report on a biennial basis. This is ITI is adopted by consensus, so all member states in consensus agreed that states will report, not voluntarily, but states will report for international tracing instrument. This is General Assembly resolution last year, last session. National reports encourage states to submit on a voluntary basis POA ITI reports and to to make use of reporting template made available by Office for Disarmament Affairs. Synchronizing reporting submissions with biennial meeting cycle. Yes, because 2000 BMS 7 scheduled for last year, postponed 1 year. So we are still collecting 2020 report, and we will quickly move on to 2022 report at the beginning of next year. National reports, trend, challenges, and opportunities. In the past 20 years, 174 states submitted a national report. It's amazing. Among 193 UN member states, the peak high was 2018 with 120 submissions. This year, this cycle, only 86. So a significant decrease in turnouts of national reports compared to the unfortunately previous cycle. Some challenges, possible challenges in submitting national reports are reporting fatigue. Well, states are requested to submit several different or some different reporting that will burden your administrative capacity. It's also possible that overlap in reporting requirements with other instruments, possibly regional reporting mechanisms. It's also possible that states lack in the capacity to prepare reports or lack in capacity for national coordination. Please mute while I make a presentation. Please make sure you are muted. What are the opportunities, or I would say benefits of reporting? Through reporting, particularly by making use of ODA template on online reporting, we can enhance the measurability of POA. It measures progress and gap, such as including baselines, best practices, trends and challenges and opportunities. National reports will enhance confidence building in the sub-region within neighboring countries. National reports will also provide opportunity to identify needs for international assistance that ensures national ownership. Support reporting on progress and data on 2020 Agenda for Sustainable Development, SDGs, particularly with regard to indicator 16.4.2. We have specific questions in this regard in the reporting template, so we will pick this up to be further explained later. Also, submission of national reports are reaffirmation of states' commitment to the global UN POA process, demonstration of political will. Through submitting and preparing reports, we hope that you can develop and build states' capacities in the area of small arms control. Online reporting template, just to touch upon quickly, 128 states utilized online reporting in the past. So online reporting is why encouraged. It maximizes utilization of data. For example, data collection and management of SDG target 16.4. 16.4 is that significant reduction of arms flows by 2030. State of play, measure progress in ITI POA implementation. Also, this will be an opportunity to harmonize global and regional reporting. For example, ODA established joint reporting system with OSCE, Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe. So OSCE member submits its report that will be also submitted together instantly to ODA for POA reporting, maximizing utilization while minimizing administrative burdens. POA reports have many yes-no simple questions, and as Ida explained, if report is submitted already online, for example, 2018, you can just update 2018 version and resubmit as 2020 report. Reporting template is available in all 6 UN languages. Well, while depending on that capacity of states, international connection, and other coordination within the government, as well as password, credentials, we have to go ensure that reporting entity is actually accredited national authority. POA ITI national reports, this cycle particularly, still called 2020 report, covering 18 and 2019 cycle, and note verbal has been sent directly to national point of contact and also through permanent missions in New York, including reminders several times. Submission deadline is extended to 31st May 2021. We will continue to receive until BMS 7, but deadline is 31st May, and we would like to receive as soon as possible so that your reports will be considered for that national reports and submitted to BMS 7. New elements which are updated from previous template is diversion, as I said, national action plan, national targets, development in manufacturing technology design, port tracing, and gender-specific measures. Submitted 2020 reports are available, and I will show the website and the new online reporting site, and contact ODA website email is also included, conventional arms-UN ODA. From these are 86 states submitted thus far. From Asia Pacific region, out of 53 countries, 12 these highlighted states submitted. Out of 53, 12 states submitted reports. This is the data collection part. I think Yuri will look into it in detail. So eventually we will see that the data comparable region by region, country by country. For example, this one, does your country take gender constellations into account? At the global level, yes, 55. Almost three-quarter answered yes, whereas some 50%, half of Asia Pacific reports said they take gender considerations into small arms control. Also, this is a collection of gender disaggregated data, comparison between global and Asia Pacific. We are also encouraging regional organizations to submit report. So let me summarize and highlight what's the importance. We would like to increase report submissions. Why? Reports include national point of contact list. National point of contact is reported and compiled and shared with ODA and other countries, other states, so that we can communicate directly. Not verbals, password. We've been sending out information and email to NPC, national point of contact, if informed to us. So this is also very important. Assistance of regional organizations is also essential for regional mechanisms such as UNRCPD is organizing this kind of seminar. State's burden is minimized. So whereas we have enhanced utilization, relevance, linkages, matching assistance needs with available resources, and contribution to SDGs. Gender issues such as women, peace and security, Secretary General's disarmament agenda, and diversion issues. Synergies, global and regional efforts is also an important aspect. Efforts to align reporting procedure, calendar, IT system database, global and interregional information exchange through network, international norms to be reflected in regional implementation, accumulation of regional actions to gain momentum at the global level, regional roadmaps, action plans fed into the global process. Okay, just very quickly, let me continue. Just database, POA database real quick. This is POA reporting database. I will show you that reporting website for reporting purposes, but this is reporting database. Let's see what kind of data information is available through online reports. This is a country profile. If we pick up one country, for example, let's say Japan, this is Japan's country profile. We have key questions and answers in information. Point of contact, manufacturer, Japan manufacturing the territory? Yes, it does. It has laws and regulations in place? Yes. So key questions extracted from national reports are listed here. Also, it has a link to OECD database. So if states provided assistance or received assistance, you can get into the database too. Statistics section, we can, based on every single questions included in national reports, we can see that the data, for example, National Coordination Agency is established in 80 countries. Here, quantity of small arms light weapons collected in 2016 and 2017, how many? 131,000, 246,000. This is still reflecting 2018 data, but we are in the process of updating to 2020 data in time for BMS7. International assistance. Also, this is still provisionally reflecting 2018 data, but if you submit a report online, if you include information, yes, we need assistance in the area of arms transfer, stockpile management, destruction, record keeping, tracing, DDR, training, then it will be reflected by country and areas of needs indicated in national reports. This is very useful for example, donor countries or implementing partners to identify which country we should extended assistance. The list of national reports is fully available here, 2020 national reports. Total is 86 thus far. Asia, and this is a list of national point of contact, Asia Pacific group. We will see all national point of contact and coordination agency information. We also have an SDG, Sustainable Development Goals section. This will facilitate data collection for SDG target 16.4. Sorry it took longer, but I will stop here for the moment, and sorry for running, but get the floor back to Ida. Back to you, Ida. Thank you.
Yes, so much, Tak, for this very comprehensive presentation of the background information and on the POA reporting mechanism. I actually wrote in the chat the link to the POA website, so you can have a look. Without any further ado, I would like to start the second segment of our training session, but also maybe I would like to take a moment just to ask you if you have any questions with regard to the first presentation. I think I can take one or two questions from the floor, or otherwise you can actually write your question in the chat box and we will answer later on. So I open the floor. Please raise your hand if you want to ask a question at this time, but we will also have the Q&A session at the end of the second session, just for you to know. At my end, I don't see any hands. Let me check once again. No, so I guess all is clear right now. And as I said, please feel free to use the chat box to ask any questions. So we can officially start the second segment of our training, which is focused, as I said, on the section by section review of the reporting template. And actually, is it the moment for you also to start to log in, to try to log in and start to fill the draft report. So I kindly ask you to try to log in and ask questions in case, raise your hand in case this is not possible at your hand. And with that, I give the floor back to Tak, who will start the presentation of the reporting template by projecting directly the online report.
Thank you, Ida, once again. Back to Tak. Thank you for your cooperation. I will move on. Sorry for rushing, but within limited time period to have the maximum benefit. Yes, I'm going to share my screen once again. Okay, Ida has shared with you that login information, and I sent you the link via chat, but you should have it already. Please log in. In my case, I'm using a test account. Ida or Yuri, you may have created the report already. Okay, if you see create a new report, and you should have a drop-down menu here. In whatever language among 6 UN official languages, you select most of you, English, and click create a new report. I just cleared up all that past created reports for this test account, but it's already created. So I am going to edit what I have, but we will see the same screen one by one, little quick. Quick one, section 1 is National Coordination Infrastructure. Question 1.1, National Coordination Body. Do you have it? Yes. Then please inform name of body, address, and the contact details, contact person, telephone, composition, the number of men and women. This is also a new component. We would like to encourage gender equality, gender parity within that your coordination mechanism to the possible extent. National point of contact, if you have national point of again, designation of national point of contact is very important, and it's only through, it is recorded and submitted only through POA reports. We do not maintain a separate list for national point of contact, but only through POA reports. So please select yes and provide name, organization, agency, address, telephone number, email, and also confirm if this this person is also responsible for ITI, yes or no. Then if no, then you need to please provide who is responsible, another person. Let's see. No, the first person is only responsible for POA. Then let's see. There's another person for ITI. You can also provide one national point of contact for POA and second person for international tracing instrument. Another new question is national action plan. Do you have national action plan on small arms light weapons? Yes. The next one, national targets 1.4. This will be discussed at the BMS 7. But if you have national targets in accordance with National Action Plan or National Action Plan time bound, you have certain targets. Let's say mark all state-owned weapons in stockpile, 50,000 of them to be marked in by 2023. Please describe such examples and you can save. Move on to the next section. Section 2 is okay. Section 2 is manufacture. Laws and regulation, administrative procedures. Yes. Does your country have laws and regulations to exercise effective control over the manufacture? Yes. Then please list, or does your country license manufacture? Yes or no? Yes. Illegal manufacture is criminal offense? Yes or no? Yes. Marking and manufacture require small arms light weapons to be marked at the time of manufacture? Yes. If yes, what kind of information? Name, manufacturer, country, serial number, year, type, model, caliber, other information? Please provide what part of SLW to be marked. Could be frame, of course, could be receiver, what component, what part of small arms it should be marked. And at the time of requirement, please describe the details. That is marking part. Then record keeping by manufacturer. Manufacturer required to keep the record? Yes. What kind of information to be recorded? Quantity, type, marking, and what kind of transactions? How long manufacturer record to be kept? Indefinitely 30 years. International Tracing Instrument expects retention of record keeping for 30 years. So let's say 30. Action taken during the reporting period. Any action taken against groups illegal manufacturing. If answer yes, you can explain, such as how many illicit manufacturers or that craft production producers were arrested or prosecuted, such and such. International assistance, if you need international assistance, yes, and provide details. And has your country developed project proposal? If yes, you can attach and upload project proposal in section 10. It will be explained by Ida later. Save again, moving on to section 3. I am going through sections 1, 2, 3. 1 is institutions, point of contact. 2 is manufacturer. And then 3, international transfers. Section 3, first question, any laws, regulations in place on international transfers? Yes. What kind of? Please list or explain. Licensing and authorization. Does a person require license to transfer small arms light weapons? Yes. Then licensing and authorization. Is that a criminal offense to do so without authorization? Yes, it's a criminal offense. Then some more details on licensing and authorization. And end user certification. Do you requires end user certification from importing countries? Yes. Then end user certification, end user certificate requires what kind of information? Description, type of weapons, contract number, country, description of end user, exporter's details, end user information, information on other parties involved in transaction, and certification by government, date of issue, this and that. Please click as applicable. Other types of end user documentation, please provide information if anything is required. Also continue licensing and information. Does your country verify or seek authorization? Do you have verification mechanism? Yes. Please explain how. Does your country have measure in place in prevention of forgery or misuse? Yes. Then please explain what kind of prevention measures. Next subsection, post-delivery control. Do you verify? Do you take measures to confirm that delivery has been made as intended after transaction takes place? If yes, post-delivery controls after exporting, does your country verify or seek authenticate delivery verification certificates provided? Yes. Provide details. Post-delivery controls again. When importing, does your country grant the right to exporting states to conduct physical check? Yes or no? Yes. Marking import. Does your country require that states imported into your country be marked at the time of import? Marking at the time of import required? Yes. Then who is responsible? What kind of information? Exceptions? No exceptions, let's say. Are they bear? If do not bear unique marking, what do you do? Does your country require that they be given such a marking? So if marking is not unique at the time of import, will you require unique marking, if not by manufacturer, by importer, so that all marking should be unique and identifiable? Record keeping. Does your country require exporters keep records of their activities? Yes. What kind of information included? How long? 30 years. Diversion. This is also a new question, as I explained, and very much connected to the agenda item for the BMS7. Diversion is the single most significant source of illicit market. So we would like to trace as much as possible and share information on diversion cases as much as possible. This section, diversion through international transfers. Does your country collect information on diversion through international transfers? Yes. Number of incidents, if you can provide details. We are aware that these are very sensitive information, but to the possible extent, it would be great if states can share this kind of information. Not only for this question, but throughout the reporting template, just in case if you do not have exact answer, if you do not have exact data, or if you are not comfortable answering questions, please skip. It's okay. It doesn't have to be a complete perfect, but as long as reasonably reflecting the reality and the situation and progress in your country, that is fine. Action taken during the reporting period. Any action, illegal cases. If yes, please provide the details. Also, at the end of every single section, we have requests for international assistance. Yes, we need international assistance. What kind of assistance? Do you have report or proposal? No, not this time. Okay, this is the end of section 3. I save it and stop here. Thank you very much for your patience and listening carefully. Sorry that I kept on talking, but I will bring the floor back to Ida.
Yes, thanks a lot, Tak, for presenting section 1 to 3 of the reporting template. Also, I would like to flag with you, Tak, is that I received a message from one of the participants that they could not actually log in with the given password and username. So may I suggest the concerned participant that maybe can send a message to you, Tak, if you allow me to do so, so that he can receive your advice on that, if it is possible, so that he can work on the report. I also would like to take the opportunity to read out also a message also from Yuri that will take the floor very soon with regard to the information on the section of manufacturers. He said that states that they do not have manufacture of arms, they could actually skip this session. So without, no, it's not, sorry. Anyway, Yuri, I will actually give the floor to you so that you clarify on this point and you can continue the presentation of the reports of section 4 to 7. Back to you, Yuri.
Thank you, Ida, and I would kindly ask you to continue sharing with all participants the template which was started by TAC.
Yes.
And
let me do that.
Yes, and first of all, distinguished participants, good afternoon. I'm very happy to welcome you to our training, and I hope this training could help you in preparing your national report. As I made a comment during the tax presentation regarding the manufacturing, of course, TAC show all possible options of responses, specifically with manufacturing. But given the list of countries which participate in today's training, I presume only very few of you have a national production of weapons, manufacturing of weapons. So for those who has such manufacturing, the presentation and the recommendations made by TAC are very pertinent. But for many others of you, this section would not require to answer yes. And you do not manufacture weapons in your own countries. We have 9 countries represented at this training. So you may, when reviewing your report, go back online to this issue. I presume you may have changes despite you already saved what TAC already explained. And you will put not, you have no manufacturer, you will put answer no under manufacturing. And then you will see much more simplified version of the national report because you have no manufacturing. And this would allow to receive. Okay.
If you can please check if your microphone is off because we can hear background noises. Thanks.
Would you please mute yourself? So this is a comment in order to make the report more closer to your real situation in your country. So now let me proceed to section 4, brokering. I hope everybody follows me. So first of all, let me bring to your attention some clarification regarding brokering, because this issue, as experience showed, caused a lot of questions among representatives from member states. So brokering, what is a brokering? What are brokers? What we are talking here, POA, in other documents. It is rather either companies or individuals which work in order to bring together potential sellers and buyers of weapons. These are called brokers. I presume that in all of your countries, you have a national company, governmental company, which is responsible to make a decision on procuring weapons through import from exporting states. But there might be a situation, and it is very widespread practice, when there are either companies, private companies, or individuals who work and looking for options to bring together potential buyers and potential sellers who have some weapons. And these sections of program of action and respective report requires this such individuals or companies, in other words, brokers, were properly registered. Their activities should be properly regulated. And in order to make their activity properly regulated and controlled to avoid any illegal actions from their side, the national legislation should be in place. And therefore, the first question, 4.1, is asking whether you have a specific legislation, national legislation, which regulate the activities of brokers, or in other words, broker activities. So you have to ask your Ministry of Justice, you have to ask all other ministries whether such a legislation is in place. It might be a situation that national legislation says that responsibility of broker activities belongs to the Ministry of Defense or belongs to the Ministry of Interior, and it is specifically said that this ministry are responsible to figure out how to procure weapons through export and import. So then it would be your decision to select, if either could you please go through this, if you select yes or no. I don't know what kind of a response you would select. If you have such a legislation, so please, you can select yes. If you do not have such a specific legislation, then your answer would be no. Also, under this question, there is a question 4.1.1, which would require, if you have such a legislation, to provide a list of some laws or administrative procedures regulating small arms brokering in your country. So you have to write a list of such law. It is, of course, in the question if you answer question yes. Mm-hmm. If you answer no, you would not see these additional questions. So depending on your selection, you will either see 3 additional questions on registration of brokers, on licensing. So if you say no, you will not see. But then you will be brought to the question 4.2. And this question requires to answer or to provide information whether your country has a regulation, some regulations for activities that are closely associated with the brokering in small arms and light weapons. The point is that there might be companies or individuals which include in their list of potential activities a very long list of activities for brokering different types of goods and services and whatsoever. And part of these activities could be connected and closely related to the export-import transfers, purchase and buying of small arms and light weapons. And therefore, the report requires to say, are there, you regulate such activities or not? It is some additional case. Your country may not have any specific regulations or legislation on brokering, but there are some other activities which are regulated by national law. And people who engage in brokering related to other goods and services may also use this, so say, a license to be engaged in activities related to small arms and light weapons. So in this case, you should say yes or no. Most likely, you should have such a law, because I don't think that these activities is not regulated by the national legislation. And then you may additionally specify in following boxes what particularly, what kind of activities in connection with small arms and light weapons is regulated by the national law. Is it clear for the moment? So either you may show that if you put yes in the question 4.2, just as, for example, you may put some marks in the boxes which relates, for instance, for transport, for storage, for finance, and perhaps security. So it is an example, but participants will specifically decide for themselves what kind of activities they would like to mark. And then next information which is required by this section, it is action taken during the reporting period. So as it was said, it is since 2018. So for this, this question may be answered given any activities carried out by your government in cooperation with international organizations, in cooperation with NGOs, etc., over the last 2 years. It could be some training organized in your countries, or training in which your participants, your representatives, participated in the regional events or national events. So in this case, you may specify that such kind of actions were undertaken during the reporting period. And so if you put select, so you may say yes if you participated. And if you say yes, then you may mention some workshops or training or any other projects in which your government was engaged over the reporting period. And then if we further proceed to international assistance, it is a very simple question. Given everything mentioned above, and given the possible needs for improving national legislation regulating broker activities, you may select yes or no. I would recommend or advise you, of course it's up to you, that such kind of assistance is required, and you may say yes. And then in the following box, you will specify what kind of training or assistance is required for developing. Very simply, it could be assistance in developing a national legislation to control broker activities on small arms and light weapons. It is an example which can be simply put, and then this information would be included in the compilation overview prepared by ODA, and the potential donors and regional organizations can take this into consideration and then be in touch with your authority in order to provide the requested assistance. And what is the 442? How your country, either could you read because it is very small font?
Sorry. Yes, as your country developed a project proposal for assistance in this regard. If so, you can attach it at the end of the reporting template.
I would leave it up to you what kind of information, yes or no, you should put there. And after that, we can save this section, save this section, and then we can make a next step to the section 5. It is stockpile management.
Yes.
By the way, I think it would be helpful if for the
I expanded a little bit the screen, Yuri, so I hope now it's more visible.
Thank you very much. What I would like to do now, just in chat for everybody. I put a link to the Mosaic module on brokering. So you may wish to refer and to consult to this module regarding the regulation of the broker activities. This link is put for your information. And now we are working with section 5. With section 5, I would say from the very beginning for the section 5 stockpile management. Also, there is a Mosaic module 05.20, and link to this module on stockpile management is also provided, and you can see it in chat. So, in order to fill out the section 5 of the report on stockpile management, we should agree that if the government equipped its military forces or armed forces, police, other security forces with small arms and light weapons, it has to put in place some norms and procedures that regulate the management of respective stocks of arms. I presume that all countries participating in this training have a police armed with small arms, and some of you may have military forces, armed forces, which also equipped with small arms and light weapons. And of course, all these arms, weaponry is kept in storage sites. And accordingly, any of your governments should put in place regulations. It could be in different way. It's written and it is purely national responsibility, but such regulations, I'm most sure, are in place. So then, because without that you cannot control weapons which are assigned to your military, police, and other security forces. So in this regard, the answer to this question 5.1, if either place you select, you will certainly say yes. This would be absolutely obvious response to these questions in the national report. And then once you click yes, you will see a list of other additional questions which request you which request you to provide additional explanations what these norms, procedures, and regulations cover or what with regard to your national stockpiles. And of course, these regulations specify the location of the stockpile, so you should mark it. So, of course, in your national procedures and norms, you specify what what kind of physical security measures should be introduced, how control of access is regulated, inventory management, and so on and so forth, training and other things. So either for the purpose of this response, you may also mark the all boxes from A to G to show participants that this is most appropriate. Many of you are military people. No, other I would skip to put other. I would leave box other H at the discretion of the national participants. They may decide whether they have some additional measures or not. But this, what is provided, is template, is more general. It corresponds to the well-established practice and the good governance of the stockpiles of small arms and lead weapons. And now, regarding the question of 5.2 and 5.3, which relates to surplus. In order to answer this question, a state should possess a policy of identifying surplus of arms in military, police, and other security forces. Arms stocks can be identified as surplus as a result of procuring new weaponry via import, via national manufacturing, or as a result of a reduction of respective force. Of course, such practice of identifying of arms surplus should be in place. Without that, it is difficult to answer these questions. So I would rather leave this issue up to respective governmental officials. But what I would like to emphasize with this regard for your better understanding, you have a certain number of small arms and light weapons assigned to your armed forces, police, and security forces. And of course, in a while, you would come to a decision that new weapons need to be procured to improve efficiency and effectiveness of your armed forces and police forces. And then you would go to exporting states, and requesting them to purchase some weapons. So you will come with a decision to import weapons. And then you will have, let's say, if not double, but significantly increased number of small arms and lead weapons. And you would have to make a decision what to do with these weapons. Because if you have a certain number of personnel, you have a certain number of assigned weapons. The rest is a surplus. But you will still have a responsibility for securing and saving these weapons. And this costs money for your budget. It's much easier to destroy or get rid of these weapons. Of course, destruction according to the POA is a preferable method, but it could be either according to national legislation transferred to the civilian security companies, or it would be sold out to other countries, or any other. It could be put as a exhibition, to the exhibition whatsoever. But you would have to make a decision regarding this surplus. And then in this question 5.2 and 5.3, you would have to answer the question. And this leads me to the next question. Therefore, I would leave it to you. But right, either distraction, it is a preferable method of reading of such weapons. And this leads me to the next issue in this section, diversion. As it was mentioned, diversion would be a priority issue for the BMS-7. And of course, what is requested under this template and these sections to provide information and confirm whether you have correct data information on incident of diversion related to national stockpile of management. If there are some loss from your stockpiles due to poor management of these, you should simply indicate number of cases. But it is important to emphasize that this is a serious issue. You pay attention to this issue, and you would like to be transparent with other member states as a responsible government for implementing a program of action. And if you have such incidents, and if the number of these incidents are significant, the assistance might be required in order to avoid such incidents in the future. And therefore, I would encourage to answer yes, as Ida already mentioned. And you know how many incidents happened over the period since 2018 in your country, and you may indicate this number. And then next is actions taken during the reporting period, as it was said in the connection with section 4. Again, you may specify whether your country representatives and your government as a whole were engaged in any activities undertaken at the national or regional level and aimed to improve physical security and stockpile management of small arms and lead weapons. If you have conducted or participated in such events, you should say yes. And then you may, oh, sorry, it's a, I guess it's action during the report. I'm sorry, I'm just jumped to other issue. Action taken during the reporting period, it relates to the destruction. Sorry, I just jump a little bit down. So if you had had some activities over the period since 2018 on destruction of surplus stocks, so please indicate this. It is up to you. If there were no such kind of action, so you would say no, and you would not see the rest of the template. And then on international assistance, this is obvious information that you may specify what kind of assistance you may require regarding improving your stockpile management of small arms and light weapons. So it is, again, I would leave it at the discretion of respective national authority, and then you will also reply the same to the point 5.7, whether you want to request assistance in developing capacity or destruction of weapons. If you have some stocks of outdated or not serviceable small arms and light weapons, and you need an assistance in its destruction, so you may specify it. And such weapon might be stored in some of your storage sites for a long time. It could be collected either from the battlefield, or it could be seized from illegal possession, or it could be collected as a result of collection. And if these weapons cannot be further used or disposed in different way, it should be destroyed. And you may specify even in this request, how many pieces of such weapons which requires further destruction you have in your possession, and you may request an assistance for its destruction. So based on that, if you have some project for destruction, you may specify yes, if such a project you have, but you need assistance to implement it. And then you may save this section. Then this section of the report,
is loading. We can go to the next session.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Do you see the
Yes.
section number 6? Great.
So now I also, yes, I see section collection, and I would like to provide through the chat a link to the respective module of Mosaic on the collection of weapons. So all participants may refer to this document, to this module. So regarding collection, it is a very simple section to report. So if during the reporting period your government collected any small arms, so you may reply yes. If there were no such kind of collection action, so then you would say no. I have no ideas. It's completely up to you. But if you say yes, so then you will see a number of additional information which you would be requested to fill out. So first of all, it is a question on how many small arms were collected during each year. So 2018 and 2019. And then if you proceed further regarding actions in the question 611, you will be again requested to put information with a number of pieces of small arms, what you have done with these weapons. You either mark it in order, if you believe that these weapons is appropriate for being assigned for further service for any of your security forces, you may specify a number which was marked, and I presume accordingly the same number would be recorded, and the rest of the entire number of collected small arms and light weapons most likely would be destroyed. So if you have X number totally collected, Y number was marked and recorded, and then X minus Y would be Z, this number was destroyed. So this is not the same either, because if it is marked, it should be.
Yeah, no, just to give an example of numbers, yes.
Yeah. But of course, if all collected weapons is destroyed, it is perfect. It just
that should be actually the case.
500. If you collected 500 pieces of small arms and then destroyed it, this would be a great example on how you reduce number of illegal weapons. So, and all other questions is self-explanatory. So whether you issued the trace request, it rather relates to the international tracing instrument, and or any other actions if they were undertaken, it's also would be reflected. And then well, this is a lot of additional information. If further breakdown of collected small arms is available, so you are requested to provide such an information on how many small arms were seized, how many small arms were surrendered, how many small arms were found. It depends on the situation. If the government conducted some collection company, it would be indicated in the section B how many were surrendered during the company or even without any company. Just people could bring these weapons to the police and say, I don't want to keep these weapons. I know that according to the national legislation, possession of the weapons is illegal. I want to get rid out of it. Or seized, it is weapons which was taken from the possession, illegal possession by police in case of respective operation. So it actually means the same. And also part C, it could be recorded, and then the part C would indicate how many of these weapons were destroyed. So it is very detailed breakdown on what your government have done with these weapons, and it would completely depends on what is practical actions were undertaken by the respective authority over the period since 2018. So if we can scroll down either on this section, I think it is self-explanatory, and if assistance is required, so you may specify yes, that assistance is required. You may write what kind of assistance could be, especially with regard to the collection. It could be specified. The same question relates whether you have your own project. So if the project does exist, so it could be attached, and it would help potential donors to decide what kind of measures could be undertaken to support the government. And having said yes on this or no, so then you should save this section as well. And now we will proceed to the last section, which relates to the marking and record keeping. Once again, I place the link to the respective module on marking and record keeping. This is a very important section of the report. So I would rather start explaining before we start answering questions. I would rather start with the record keeping and explaining why it is important to have a record keeping. First of all, through national record keeping systems, you can keep weapons accounted and under control. And secondly, a record keeping system allows you to follow and trace weapons during their entire life, from manufacturing until the destruction. And a program of action requires to keep records on all small arms and light weapons as long as possible, especially on manufacturing, holding, and transfers. This is in order to avoid and prevent any diversion. So when we have all weapons traced, it's much easier to prevent its diversion. And international tracing instrument has a little bit different requirements. On manufacturing, records should be kept for 30 years or more, and for other, including export and import, for 20 years or more. A little bit different, but it is so decided by member states. And what is needed to have a piece of weapons recorded? It is like a certificate of birth. When a person, individual is born, is given a birth, it's always stated name, who are parents, when it was born, and some other information could be included. The same is with weapons. When it is manufactured, it should be given a name. In other words, every single piece of weapons should be given an individual unique marking. This is the name of weapons. And now let us proceed to the question 7.1. Does your country take measures to ensure that all small arms in the possession of government armed and security forces for their own use are duly marked? I would think that every government has such requirement. Therefore, there might be no other questions, only yes. Yes, it is the right questions, the question which you should put in question ask. Then, if you do this, then you have to describe the marking that are applied to your governmental held stocks. And response to these questions help you to clarify what does mean duly marked, because in question 7.1 you have a phrase duly marked, that weapons is duly marked, and 7.1.1 it is simply to help you to explain what does it mean. You have to specify what unique information your marking system includes. So usually, and this is in accordance with program of action and firearms protocol and other respective documents, tracing mechanisms, and also module, this should include country of manufacture. This is number one. It should include the name of manufacturer, who is manufactured these weapons, a serial number, year when a weapon was manufactured, weapon type and module, and caliber. Usually, this information is placed on weapons at the time of manufacturing weapons. The only thing what is required from your government and from your respective authority and regulations to acknowledge these requirements and make it mandatory for your national stocks of weapons. This main information. In addition, if you do not manufacture weapons at your own and you import weapons, the program of action and other documents require to put information about your countries, that weapons was imported by your country, and it also requires to put a year when the weapons was imported to your country. If you know this in advance, usually this information is provided by manufacturer upon your request. If not, if weapons was imported later on, so then you would you have to put this information upon receiving, upon completion of shipment of such weapon. And these are main information put. So you may add either to this 7.1.1 also country of importing country and year of import. So this information should be put in your response. And of course, another important issue to provide information. It's a 7.1.2 It's provide information about the indication and marking if weapons is transferred to the civilian possession to individuals or companies. If your government doesn't have a permission for individual civilian possession, so answer should be no. And that's it, because you have such a legislation. If there is a practice that armed forces, security forces may transfer some weapons to the civilian possession, then it should be yes. And then it would be indicators of such effect that we have such provisions. And of course, 7.2 whether your government requests a manufacturer to develop some measures to protect weapons, if you order the weapons to a respective manufacturer, of course you may say yes, because such requirements should be put in and to protect the market. But if you do not have such requirements, and if you buy weapons from exporters which already exist and which was manufactured under the requirements of the manufacturing states, so in this case, you may not indicate that you have a specific requirements. So in this regard, to 7.2, you may answer yes or no, depending on your national practice. Can we proceed further? Yeah, this regarding the question of, let me see once again. Yes, regarding point 7.3, I already explained. 7.4, it is information which was included in the reporting template based on the recommendation of the review conference 3. And the template actually provides a website to which, if you have any information and national marking practice related to marking used to indicate country of manufacture, country of import as appropriate. So such information should be provided directly to Interpol, to the link, which is, do we have? Yes, this link is provided here in the report. So this information should be sent by your government directly to this link. And then all other issues related to the record keeping. Of course, all weapons should be recorded. So answer to this question is yes. I don't think that you would allow to have unrecorded weapons. And then for the questions, would request you to provide additional information regarding the keeping the respective records. How long does the government keep? Again, as I said, it should be minimum as long as possible according to POA, but according to the tracing instrument, 30 years and more. And so you may indicate this duration. And again, for the international assistance, you may specify whether a particular technical assistance might be required. I know that many countries require assistance with putting marking, especially on weapons which was collected or seized from illegal possession if it would be used further. So you may include this request. You may include this request and specify how many pieces of weapons you are going to mark with this machine, if it is marking machine is required. And then it can be submitted and again taken into consideration by the donors. So then it should be saved. And if you have any questions regarding to all these sections, please feel free to raise your hand and ask. I would be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you very much, Yuri, for this very...
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you. Okay, thanks, Yuri. Thanks a lot for this very comprehensive section by section, but also question by question review of the three sections, the 4 sections that you just explained to us. I also would like to add that you can find in the digital dossier the respective mosaic modules that Yuri just mentioned and that share the link with you in the chat box. I also would like to apologize because we are running late. So I hope you can still bear with us so we can conclude the section by section review. I will try to be brief and concise for the other 3 parts. For those who cannot stay with us, please be reassured that we can share with you the recording of the video. So hopefully you can continue to stay with us for additional time. Okay, so I we start with section number 8 on international tracing. I also would like to provide a little bit of background on international tracing that you might find useful. Most illicit small arms and light weapons begin as legally manufactured or imported weapons, and then they are subsequently diverted to the illicit market. And tracing is the systematic tracking of illicit small arms or light weapons from their point of manufacture or most recent import through their lines of supply to their last title holder in order to determine the point in space and time at which they became illicit. And also, a state may initiate a tracing request in relation to small arms and light weapons that was found in the national territory, and it is considered to be illicit because maybe it was found under circumstances that were breaking the national jurisdiction or also the international law. The question number 1 is about laws, regulation, and administrative procedures. So does your country have procedures in place to trace small arms and light weapons? So you can select yes or not. Usually you should have some procedures with laws, regulation to help tracing small arms and light weapons. So in this case, you can select yes. Then we can move to the next question, which is which government agency is responsible for making a tracing request to another country. And this actually question could be cross-referenced also with the question in section number 1 the TAC cover on the national point of contact on the ITI. So in this case, if your government has a national point of contact on the ITI, on the international tracing instrument, this person, this agency should be responsible for making a tracing request to another country. In case you don't have a national focal point, a designated national focal point on the ITI, then you should ask who is the agency responsible. So hopefully you already have this information. In most cases, this actually lies on the Ministry of Public Security or sometimes on the Commission on Crime. So you know the answer, and if you know, you can actually write it here in this box. Then question 8.3 on tracing request. What information does the designated agency include in tracing request? So usually when a state places a tracing request, it also provides several information. For instance, the circumstances under which the illicit small arms was found. So it could be during a crime investigation, during seizure operation. The reason why small arms light weapons is considered to be illegal or illicit. So as I said, it's considered illicit when it actually is breaching the national jurisdiction. What is the intended use of the information being sought? So what is the purpose of this tracing operation? Any marking of small arms light weapons. Yuri already explained what are the marks that you can find on weapons, the type, caliber of small arms light weapons, or other. It could be, for instance, also the digital picture of the particular information that you would like to request for tracing the illicit weapon or small arms. Then question 8.4, technology for tracing. Has your country made use of technologies to improve tracing of illicit small arms and light weapons? So the answer is very straightforward: yes, no, or yes. If you possess this kind of technology and that you use it. And then the other question is about cooperation with Interpol. In most cases, the initiation of international tracing requests may be facilitated by Interpol or regional organizations. So in this case, if your country cooperated with Interpol on the issue of tracing small arms and light weapons, please select yes or no if this didn't happen. If you select yes, okay, you don't have anything showing up. And then the last question is about international assistance. Does your country wish to request assistance in developing procedure to trace small arms and light weapons? So you can select yes or no. And if you select yes, you could actually specify which kind of assistance you could request. And an example of international cooperation and assistance in tracing include, for instance, upgrading national record-keeping system on small arms and light weapons, equipping and networking national point of contact of tracing, training of national point of contacts on the conduct of domestic and international tracing operations, training of law enforcement officials in, for instance, identifying small arms and light weapons, also interacted with Interpol, with the National Central Bureau of Interpol. And last question, so the 8.6.2, has your country developed a project proposal for assistance in this regard? So in case you have developed a project proposal, so you can check yes, and then I will show you later on where you can upload this proposal. And also one thing I would like to highlight with regard to this section on international tracing is that this section is also very important for the Sustainable Development Goal 16 on peace, justice, and strong institutions. And particularly, it is very relevant to the indicator 16.4, which focuses on weapons tracing. In fact, it reads proportion of seeds found or surrendered arms whose illicit origin or context has been traced or established by a competent authority in line with international instruments. So the data of this section will also help in collecting information and measuring the indicator 16.4 of Sustainable Development Goal number 16. If you fill your information here, you can save. You can click save, and then we can go to the next. Okay, and also I will share in the chat box later on, but also in the digital dossier, the respective Mosaic module on international tracing, so you can find more information. So next is about international cooperation and assistance. So also this session is very important because you can use this session to share assistance needs that then public and also donor implementer can pick up on. So the first question is the 9.1. During the reporting template, in addition to the assistance request received mentioned in the section 2.8 that were covered by TAC and Yuri, has your country request received provided assistance to implement the program of action and the international tracing instrument? So you can simply select no or yes, and if you select yes, then you have a different option. So just to clarify, this section, you could use this section to highlight your assistance needs, but also in case you provided assistance to another member state, you can also, or for instance, if you participated also in multi-donor funded trust fund for small arms and weapons control, you can actually use this section also to report on this kind of assistance that you provided. So if the answer is yes, if you received or provided assistance, you actually have different areas in which you have provided assistance. One, it could be about the institutional infrastructure. With regard to the implementation of POA on ITI. So for instance, the areas could be establishing, designated a national coordination agency or a national point of contact and national action plan. So for instance, if your country does not have a national agency on the POA and ITI implementation, and you need assistance in establishing this agency, you could actually use this section to raise this need, and you no, sorry, I got confused. This is not the section to raise your needs, but also you can actually no, yes, sorry. Yes, you can use this section to request in case you need assistance in establish a national coordination agency. You can click request, and actually you specify the nature of the assistance you need. It could be financial assistance, or it could also be purely technical assistance. Like for instance, it could be a training of government officials in order to establish a national coordination mechanism on the POA implementation. In case you already received assistance during the implementation period, so during 2018-2019, you can actually specify the kind of assistance you receive. For instance, you can specify the financial amount. You can actually add the description. For instance, if government officials participated once again in a training on national coordination mechanism, you can actually write here workshop on national coordination mechanism held you can specify the date, and here you have the duration, so you can specify the duration of this assistance. And here you can also specify the states or the organization that provided you with the assistance. So it could be a UN agencies, or it could be actually the assistance in the framework of a bilateral agreement with another member state. So you can use this box to specify this kind of information. So another areas in which you could request, or you can report on received or provided assistance is, for instance, DDR. Other are capacity building and training on small arms light weapons issues. For instance, if you need a training on the implementation of the Mosaic modules, or if you already received this kind of training on the implementation of Mosaic modules, you can actually use it here. In case you participated in this kind of training, you can select received, and then you can provide details on the nature of these assistance that you received. In case you provided assistance, same logic, you can actually provide information on the assistance that you provided. And in case you want to request this kind of assistance, you click on request, and then you can specify the specific needs with regard to capacity building and training on small arms light weapons issues. Then another areas could be law enforcement. So the logic is still the same. If you need particular assistance, please click on request, and then you specify. If you received, click on received, and then you provide additional information on the assistance that you received. If you actually provided to another member states this kind of assistance, you can click on provided and add the respective details and information. In other areas in which you could need assistance, or you received or you provided assistance, could be customs and borders, could be research. For instance, in the case of research, if you want to conduct a small arms light weapon survey, you can actually make this request. You click on request and you specify the nature of this request. If you already conducted research with regard to small arms light weapons illicit proliferation, you can actually report on this kind of assistance that you received or that you provided. And then gender considerations, women, men, girls, and boys. So here, if you actually received an assistance, for instance, to integrate gender consideration in the different stages of small arms control, or with regard to the implementation of the specific provision on gender of the program of action, you can actually report on this activity, and you click on received. For instance, as I said, UNODA has launched an in-country training program on gender mainstream in small arms control. If you participated in this kind of training, you could actually use this section to say received this kind of training and provide the information about this activity. If you actually want to request for assistance in or a particular training on gender mainstream in small arms control, on the implementation of the gender provision of the POA, you can actually select a request, specify the nature of the assistance, and yes, and then we can talk more about the gender provision of the POA and which kind of activity you can actually undertake to mainstream gender with regard to the implementation of the POA. I will touch upon on that when I will address section number 10. And then another areas in which you could request, have received or have provided assistance is awareness raising, for instance, on the issues that relate to small arms light weapons illicit proliferation and the impact, the social impact of this kind of phenomenon. If you conducted the awareness raising at the community level on the issue of small arms light weapons illicit proliferation, and you received assistance to conduct this kind of activity, you can click on received and you can specify the nature of the assistance you received. If you want to start this kind of activity, please take the opportunity. You can click on request and you can specify the nature of the assistance that you will need. And then another areas is organized crime, drug trafficking, and terrorism. The logic is always the same. If you received, click on received. If you want to request, click on request. And if you provided assistance in the framework of a bilateral agreement with another member state, please click provided. And then you also have the option of other. For instance, if you received assistance with regard to the implementation of the POA and the ITI, and if this kind of assistance is not specified in the option that you have from A to I, you can use actually the box J to specify the kind of request you have received or provided. For instance, an example of other that you received or provided or request, it could be an activity on the prevention of armed violence. It could be also an activity which relate to the security sector reform that has also a component on small arms control. It could also be educational programs with youth on small arms-related weapons issues. So you can actually use this box other to specify any kind of assistance that you think it is relevant to the implementation of the program of action and to the implementation of the ITI. So now, after you complete this part, you click on Save. And we go on Next. Okay, so the next session is the final session of the reporting template, is section number 10 on gender and additional consideration. As Tak already mentioned at the beginning of his presentation, this section contains new indicators with regard to gender consideration. And why it contains new indicators? Because I also would like to provide you a little bit of background of the gender provision of the POA. So the program of action and the ITA actually has adopted a progressive language on gender consideration, particularly during the third conference to review the program of action that was held in 2018. And the outcome document of the third review conference contains a series of indicators and objectives toward which states actually have committed to progressively integrate gender consideration in small arms-related weapons control. So does your country, first question, does your country take into account gender consideration? So if you select yes, and I encourage you to select yes, because actually we can go through the different gender consideration, you have a list of indicators. And actually, these are indicators that that could also be perceived as the series of action that if you start implement, you will progressively mainstream gender into small arms and light weapons. So the first one, increase understanding of gender-specific impacts of the illicit trade in small arms-related weapons. So also I would like to provide a little bit of background. So why we talk about gender and small arms control, and why here we talk about the gender-specific impact of small arms-related weapons control. So small arms and light weapons is a highly gender phenomenon because women, girls, men, and boys are impacted differently by the use, misuse, but also the possession of small arms-related weapons. So take into account the gender-specific impacts of small arms-related weapons. It means try to understand the different impact that small arms have on women, men, boys, and girls. Like, for instance, if we talk about the impact of small arms, and if we think on the global statistics on homicide committed with small arms-related weapons, we see that that the majority of victims of firearm-related homicide are men. So there is a clear gender dimension in this phenomenon, but we also see that, for instance, in fragile setting and in setting with a high level of lethal violence, the risk of being victim of firearm-related violence for women is also very high in this kind of settings. Increased understanding of the gender impacts of the illicit trade in small arms light weapons, it means actually that at your end, you are conducting the kind of gender analysis to try to understand the specific impact that the small arms light weapons have in your country. So what are, for instance, the majority of the victims of firearm related homicide and so on. The second indicator is about promote the meaningful participation and representation of women in policy making, planning and implementation processes related to the implementation of the program of action, including their participation in National Small Arms Commission. So basically, when we talk about gender mainstreaming small arms control, we usually talk about two avenues. The first avenue is try to understand the gender implication on small arms and light weapons control. But the second avenue is also to try to promote gender equality in small arms and light weapons control. And we all know that small arms and light weapons control is traditionally a male-dominated sector. So gender equality is also an operational necessity in small arms and light weapons control, because small arms and light weapons control affect all individuals. So it is important to bring on board all individuals in all decisions that pertain to small arms and light weapons control. So if your state, for instance, is applying gender equality policies in small arms and light weapons control, you can actually select these option, yes or no. If you are not, you can select not. And I will encourage you to ask a request to improve this aspect. Then the third indicator or consideration is seriously consider increasing funding for policies and programs that take account of the different impacts of illicit small arms and light weapons on women, men, girls, and boys. So this third indicator is very in line with the first one. So the first one, if you already conducted a gender analysis, so the third indicator is about, are you integrating this gender analysis in programs with regard that relate to the implementation of the POA and they relate to small arms and light weapons issue. If this is the case, so please select yes. If this is not the case, you can select no. Then the fourth is about mainstream gender dimension into your implementation efforts. I already explained there are two main avenues. If you include the gender analysis in your implementation efforts, and you can actually include a gender analysis at the different stages of small arms and light weapons control, you can actually say yes, but also if you promote gender equality at different stages of small arms and light weapons control and the different implementation efforts, you can actually select yes, or otherwise you select no. Then exchange national experience, lesson learned, and best practices on the mainstreaming gender dimension into policies and programs. So, for instance, within your government, different agencies are implementing or applying a gender equality policies in this sector, and you actually liaise with them to learn best practices and try to reproduce this kind of practices also into the small arms and light weapons control and the activities that relate to the POA. You can actually select yes, or you can select no. If, for instance, your government has a gender equality strategy in the security sector, or for instance, a gender equality strategy for police forces, and you actually leverage this kind of experience to also extrapolate one of the lesson learned best practices also into the different activities that pertain to the implementation of the POA and ITI. These actually could be the situation in which you can actually select yes, or in case not, you can select no. Then ensure coordination on the implementation of the POA between relevant national small arms authorities with other national authorities working on gender equality. This is also very much in line with the previous indicator. So if, for instance, within a national coordination mechanism on small arms related weapons control, or on the implementation of the POA, you also have representatives of the Ministry on Gender Equality, the Ministry of Women Affairs. This is actually an example of a coordination between relevant national authorities. And if this case applies to your case, to your specific situation, please, you can select yes or no. Then you also have the option other. So in the option other, for instance, if your government is engaging in the implementation of the Women, Peace and Security agenda, and there are some areas of mutual engagement between the Women, Peace and Security agenda and all the efforts related to the implementation of the program of action and the ITI, you can actually specify this kind of activities in the box other. Or for instance, if your government is actually implementing efforts to prevent armed violence, to prevent gender-based violence, which also include a component or a linkages between gender-based violence and the misuse of small arms-related weapons, you could also specify this kind of activity in other. So other actually is very broad. You can specify any kind of activity that you find relevant to the integration of gender consideration in small arms-related weapons control and to the linkages, for instance, with gender-based violence and the use of small arms allied weapons. Then we move to the other question with regard to gender consideration, which is actually the most challenging, because as we saw during TAC presentation, as of today, we have a low number of states that actually have reported to collect disaggregated data on gender and small arms-related weapons. The answer is very straightforward to this question. Do you collect disaggregated data? Disaggregated data means disaggregated by sex, but could also be disaggregated by age. So yes or no. So most of the time states reply no, because sometimes there is a lack of understanding on which kind of data we can, sex and age disaggregated data we can collect in small arms allied weapons context. So I've actually prepared a slide with an example of sex and age disaggregated data to collect in small arms control. I'm not going to project the slide because otherwise I will actually interrupt the projects of the reporting template. I will just read it for you. So for instance, an example could be a number of weapons legally owned that you can disaggregate it by sex. If you are conducting a survey to understand the number of weapons that are legally owned in your country, you can actually specify how many of these weapons are owned by women or are owned by men. The number of firearm license holders is a similar indicator. You can actually disaggregate this indicator by sex, or you can collect data on the number of persons killed or injured in firearm-related incidents, and you can disaggregate these data by sex. Likewise, you can collect data on the number of persons experiences violence like if by intimate partners. So we are talking about domestic violence and that were perpetrated with the use of a firearm. So the number of femicides that are committed with the firearms is also a very relevant data to collect. Then also the number of firearms license that were revoked due to the report to the criminal record of domestic violence. The number also of personnel in police force, military, security sector, institution, relevant ministries, private sector companies, armed group, disaggregated by sex. Also, this is another good piece of information with regard to the distribution of state-held weapons, the sex disaggregated by sex. Another indicator could be the number of prosecution of person for illegal firearm trafficking, ownership disaggregated by sex, the number of personnel authorized to carry firearms disaggregated by sex. So this is also in line with the previous indicator. So with regard to state-held weapons by security and defense forces, is also very useful to try to understand the gender composition. Then another example could be numbers of visitors to shooting clubs. For instance, you could disaggregate this data by by age and sex. And if we talk, for instance, about disarmament, DDR process, you could actually collect this information, the information of number of voluntarily surrendered illicit small arms by sex and age, and also in the framework of seizure operation, you can collect data on the number of weapons seized in connection with other offenses. For instance, during the crime investigation for a femicide committed with the firearms, and in the framework of this operation, the certain weapons were seized. You can actually collect this kind of information. So this is another example of sex and age disaggregated data, or also in operation that regards drug trafficking, other crime trafficking, and you seize weapons and are in this kind of operation, you can also find women and men as agent of trafficking. You can collect this kind of information, or any other information that also pertain to a human right violation related crime that was committed with firearms, and following that some seizure operation were conducted. So I hope I provided you with a broad spectrum of example of data that you can collect. If your state is already collecting this kind of data, so please check yes. And details, you can use the box details to provide the different details. If no, so then you click no, and for instance, you can request assistance like a training to enhance your capacity to collect sex and age disaggregated data, because as a matter of fact, is a very challenging area, particularly when we talk about gender mainstreaming small arms control, and gender analysis and availability of data is the first starting point to mainstream, to conduct a gender analysis, and therefore to include the gender relevant consideration into small arms related weapons control and to the different areas that pertain to the implementation of the POA and ITI. So with now, I actually did my best to try to be very brief, or let's say fast, in the presentation of the latest section. We are now at the end. The last question about additional information, key challenges and opportunities. So this actually is an opportunity for you to raise to bring to our attention any information, any comments that you have with regard to the implementation of the POI, ITI. So it could be actually any challenges that you encounter in implementing the specific provision of the POA, any opportunities. Actually, it also be a window for you to share best practices at the national level with regard to the implementation of the POA, with regard to national laws, regulations, and administrative procedures. So if you have something to share here with us, please use this box, and you actually use the details box to provide additional details. And then the last question that we mentioned several times through the different reporting section is the option, the opportunity to upload, attach additional files. For instance, if you have a national action plan on the implementation of the POA ITI, you can actually upload the national action plan, and you can use this box. You can click on add files. And I believe you can have this file in your desktop, so you can just look for it, open, and then you upload it. But it could also be, for instance, a national action plan on women, peace, and security that contains areas that you think are of mutual engagement with regard to the implementation of the POA. So we received, for instance, in the past, we had some member states that share with us the National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security, or a National Action Plan on Gender-Based Violence Prevention, or any other domestic strategy that you find relevant to the POA implementation, to the ITI implementation. Or, as we said, if you you want to share with us a particular needs with regard to the implementation of the POA, and you already developed a project proposal, you can actually use this section to upload the project proposal. So I believe I touched upon the different points that I wanted to raise with you. I asked my colleague Tak or Yuri if they want to complement, because we are at the end. So this is actually the most important part, because you save it and then you have to submit it. So maybe Tak, over to you, and then Yuri, if you want to add a few words. You are on mute, I believe. Hi, we cannot actually hear you, Tak.
Excuse me, Ida, I presume that Tak experienced some technical problem. So in order to not keep our distinguished participants longer, we already well exceeded the time which was initially scheduled for this training, but it is so important issue, and we wish to provide as much details and information as possible in order to ease your task in preparing the national report and submitting it online. Therefore, we do appreciate your patience, and I hope that all details provided for each individual section of the reporting template were well noted and help you to prepare your national report. I think it is a great opportunity for us to discuss this important issue, especially in a view of BMS 7, which would be convened on 26 July 2021. So as Tak mentioned in his presentation, in spite of the established deadline for submitting report of 31st of May, today is 28th of May, ODA will be open and accept your reports prior to the BMS 7. Therefore, we would like to take this opportunity to thank you very much for your participation in this training. And we would like to encourage you to complete your report and submit it online. Ida already provided all of you with national passwords, so you can use these for submitting your report. And well, if you have any further questions regarding the finalizing your report, please feel free and be very welcome to contact us back with your questions, and we would be happy to provide any additional information. Having said that, Ida, I would like to over to you, or perhaps Tak already settled his problem. He may also wish to say a couple of words. But thank you very much again for your participation.
Please, Tak, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. Thank you very much, everyone, and for bearing with us for longer time than expected. But let me underscore one more point. Yes, it is not easy to prepare data and prepare report and submit, but we've been making our best, not ODA, but all small arms community are trying to make the best use of the data you are providing for international assistance, sustainable development goals, gender issues. We are committed to make the best use of your report, so please submit and show your political will and commitment to the POA small arms process. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tak. And once again, thanks for staying with us. It's very late in New York, so I would like to highlight that. Thanks a lot to all participants that stay with us. We are 1 hour late with regard to the original timeline. So thanks for bearing with us. Now I actually would like to launch a short poll just to ask you if you would like to have an individual follow-up session with us, if you need additional assistance to complete and submit the report. So let me launch the poll. So please feel free to answer yes or not, or if you just want to answer by email, you want to just contact me directly. Happy to schedule this kind of additional assistance. So let me launch the poll. Open poll. Do you see it? Great. Okay, if you agree, I will close the poll. Please let me know. You can just switch on your microphone if you need additional seconds. Also, because I just realized that actually I launched a different poll, so apologies for that. Okay, so I will close the poll if that is okay with everyone. Okay, I will close it. Thanks. Thanks a lot. Okay. It is loading. Sorry, I apologize. Today I really have a bad internet connection on my end, and this explains why WebEx is reacting very slowly today. Result. So actually, this is a different poll that I wanted to run at the beginning of our session, but the poll function did not work at the time, and the objective was actually to understand if you have a designated national point of contact on the POA. So now I would like to launch the new poll. I want to save the results first. Okay, save. Okay. No. Apologies, but the other. Yeah. No. Sorry, there is something wrong this morning at my end. So let me just do it now. No. Okay. So give me 1 second. Apologies for that. Okay. Okay, let's try now. Okay, I just launched hopefully the right poll. Really, my sincere apologies for this technical issue. Okay, so I believe I can close the poll. Please let me know. You can just use a microphone to say that you need additional seconds or minutes. Otherwise, I will just simply close the poll. And once again, apologies for the delay with this last activity. Okay, so let me close it. Okay, and now I close it so that poll result, we can actually see the results, and I will actually save the results. Okay. Okay. So thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for your patience. Once again, I would like to extend my gratitude to the speakers of today, to our director, Yuri Krivonos, and to our colleagues, TAC, for his comprehensive presentation and also for the useful information that he provided us with regard to logging into the website, submitting the report online. I also saw that TAC share his email in the chat. Thanks for that, TAC. So in case you have any questions, you can also contact me directly, but you can contact TAC. Thanks to all of you for making the time to be here with us today. I really hope that this training session was useful for you to draft at least the draft report. And as I said, we are here and we are available for an additional session. Happy to facilitate the final submission of the report 2020 and so that you will contribute and you will inform the discussion of the upcoming biennial meeting of states that are to be held at the end of July, the last week of July. So with that, I officially close the training. Please, we keep in contact, we stay in touch. I wish you a good rest of the day, afternoon, evening, depending on where you are, and a good night to TAC, and good day to Yuri, with also that is early morning at our side. Okay. Thank you a lot and see you soon. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Nice people.
Thank you, Ida, from Timor-Leste.
Thank you. Thank you too.
Thank you, Ida, for Timor-Leste. I'm Valente from Customs.
Nice to see you. Thank you. Nice to see you finally. Thanks for your coordination on the participation in this training. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Okay.